Right, greetings all, hope this finds you well as always. It's now time for the latest update from the machine shop, where we're up to and what we're on with. Except for those observant ones amongst you, you may notice we're not in the machine shop, we're in the boiler shop instead. No, we haven't been exiled to sort of Siberia or anything like that. It's because here's where the big hydraulic power press is, which the lads have been doing a lot of the pressing out of bushes on, and it's also here where our next major job, which is 76079's rods, have been lined up ready to go. As you can see, various of the bushes here have been pressed out of the rods. The idea is you have the rod itself, and we'll go to one that's actually still got a bush in it. Yeah, that one at the back there. You will see how there's a bronze and white metal bush pressed into the rod, and that basically runs on the crank pin. The idea is the rod has a top hat on one side, and it should have a thrust ring on the other, except that one's come adrift. That controls the side-to-side play, and then the bush itself rides on the crank pins. Now, as part of the winter maintenance, what's happened is the lads have taken these rods off, they've measured the crank pins, they've then measured the bush to find the fit of the bush onto the crank pin. Some of them are within tolerance, like that one, and some of them, like these ones over here, aren't. What's happened here is the white metal has worn to the stage where the bush is too slack a fit onto the crank pin. Now, at this point, what they've then done is put the rods individually, one by one, into the big power press there, and press the bushes out. However, if you look closely at some of these bushes, like this one right at the back here, you'll see there's some crosses, black crosses, marked on the brim of it. Now that means that bush is too slack a fit in the rod. What happens is when we machine a new bush, it's machined to be a press fit into the hole in the rod. You'll usually get about, well, it will be pressed in once when new, and then over time they can be pressed out and remetalled once, maybe twice if the job was done right the first time. After a while, however, the bush starts to work loose in the rod, and these ones here that are marked with the black cross, like that one as well, are bushes that are worked loose. So they will have to be renewed completely. That's when we start with a new casting, we bore it out, we cast the white metal in, we finish machine it to size, we press it back in, having added an oil hole and the keyway, of course, and job's done. Now, the ones that have come out with a reasonable force will go again, like, where's one that will go again? Because that's to be replaced as well. That will go again, that one. What we'll do here is these will have the white metal melted out, new white metal cast in. We'll then machine it back to a running fit onto the crank pin. I've actually got one in the lathe now that we'll go and have a look at in a minute to see the job in progress. And then that'll be pressed back into the rod and it'll go again for another couple of years. But the other ones, there's certainly two there, possibly three, I'm not sure. I think it's just the two. It's just that one and that one at the back. They're both to be renewed. We will start with new castings with those. And one of the jobs I've been on with this week is ordering all the new bushes we need and also all the new bush material, because there's also quite a few small bushes in the motion to do. I mean, I know this is 75029's frames behind us, but the sort of things we're talking about are small bushes like that and like that. Some of those on 76079 have worn to the stage where they need renewing, so we've ordered in all the material to do that. Okay, so if we walk through to the machine shop, hopefully we can see some of the jobs we've got in progress in there. And we can come out of this, I won't say frozen Siberian gulag, but I think that's been unfair to frozen Siberian gulags. It's not very warm in here, in case you haven't worked it out. Anyway, right, so, through into the machine shop. Ah, that's better. Right, what we have in here, first of all, as I said, we have one of the bushes which has been remetalled and remachined. You'll notice the heater's on, much more civilised. Right. Here we have, no, we don't have that, that's something else. Sorry about that, folks. There we have one of the bushes, which has already been remetalled, new white metal cast in. We've then bored it out to finish size. I've done the finished size, so when pressed, it should be a running fit on the crank pin. And oddly, these ones, normally they have a big radius on one end where they sit against the wheel. These don't, for whatever reason. And so that one is, all it needs is, in the casting process, they've filled the oil pad hole there with white metal, and so that needs machining out before that can be pressed back into the rod. But apart from that, that bush is done and ready to go. Okay. Other bushes, the thing I briefly pointed the camera at in the lathe, we saw the other of these last week. These are the big ends for the crane. As I said, the Mostana lathe has died. The Rose electrician and also the one and only Chalky White are currently looking at it to identify the fault. The minor entertainment is that all the circuit diagrams we have and all the components are labelled in Russian, which is proving to be a slight technical problem, but Chalky's well on with it, so that'll be sorted. So anyway, these were previously being done in the Mostana. With that out of commission for the moment, I've had to chuck them into the Harrison. And so I'd already done one set last week, which I'll point the camera at in a sec. And then, so today I've put the other set in there, dialed them in, set them up, and I've just bored that out to finish size. The last job that needs to be done is these have a radius on the outside end. So we have a form tool. There you go, to do said radius. That'll be done tomorrow morning, and then that can come out that jig. There's 2 oil holes in there to clean out, and then those are ready for refitting. Incidentally, you remember me talking about measuring gear the other week? Well, you may recognise this, micrometer and good old bore gauges. I prefer to use these for doing work like this for one very simple reason. I use the bore gauge to measure the hole. I will use the micrometer to measure the bore gauge, but I also then in turn use the same micrometer to measure the crank pin. So I'm always just using one piece of equipment, so it doesn't matter how it's set. Incidentally, if I want to see how I've worked out a fit, the set of numbers we're looking at the bottom are those labelled right hand side. Now, you will see the crank pin is slightly oval. It's only a thou oval, and that initial number should be a 2, by the way, not a 7. So we've got, in one dimension, vertically, we've got 2.737. In the other dimension, we've got 2.738, which is actually, it's quite interesting. There's not actually much deviation between the left and the right hand side, which, to be honest, you'd expect. So what I've done is I've basically gone for a thou per inch running fit on those measurements. So I've actually gone slightly over because it's a split brass, but we've actually machined it out to 2.741. It's slightly over, but because it's a split brass, I wanted a wee bit more clearance in it, so we've got a wee bit more room when the time comes to fit the brass onto the crank pin. So there we go, that's how that's been done. Right, another thing that has been done, and this is full credit to Brian, is I showed you this nut the other week and said that his next job was to thread it. Well, Brian freely admitted, in his own words, he'd never done any internal screw cutting before, never. He'd done external, but never internal. I said, right, well, it's just like internal, except you work out rather than going in. And he took the nut and he took a tap to use as a gauge. And he brought it back to me an hour or so later and said, was this satisfactory? And I think you'll agree, ladies and gentlemen, with a thread like that, with no whacker in it, with the general overall quality of that nut, Brian, mate, that's more than acceptable. That's excellent workmanship. And considering that's a first go for machining internal thread, I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed indeed. That's lovely work. So anyway, so that's that. As I said, that's the bits of 76. Just to give you some idea of the winter work that's coming in, I spent part of yesterday updating the board, and so you can see the various jobs that come in on 76. There's the blank for 80136 is just purely, I know there's 3 small brasses that need doing, but the lads haven't pressed any of the rod brasses out yet because she's actually going for tyre turning. So the wheels are going for tyre turning. So 80136 is a bit of a back boiler project. 76 is a bit more important. And then you can also see all the other jobs, some which have been done, some which haven't, and all of which will be done. So that's that. Okay. So, just incidentally, if anyone's wondering, if I can just find it. Sorry, where's it gone? There you go. That is the shopping list for what you need to completely repair or do all the winter maintenance on the bottom end of 76079. 2 new rod brass castings, and then various items in phosphor bronze. There's some billets required there. The first set, the 1.5 internal by 2 3/4 external that we need 24 inches of. That's for all the small motion bushes. And then the 5" by 3" that we need 7 inches of, that's for the little end bushes. As that just gives you some idea the amount of material that we'll use this winter on just one locomotive. That's just one of them. That's just 76079. So just gives you some idea the amount of material we use and the sort of stuff we're doing. And also, hip hip hooray, celebrate, sound the bells, etc. You will also notice that 806's header is nowhere to be seen. That's because it was finally finished, turfed out, and is currently sat in the boiler shop on a trolley, waiting for the boiler lads to give it hydraulic test. And then once that's done, it can then be greased up and put into the container for storage. So you'll notice we've suddenly got some floor back. It's quite exciting, isn't it? Must find something to put on it quickly. If you'd leave floor uncovered like that, it disappears. You've got to put something nice and heavy on it, or otherwise it goes away. Anyway, folks, I hope you found it educational, informative. Hope you found it interesting. And take care, and I'll see you around.